Greetings and God's peace be with you. My name is Kristofer Lindh-Payne and I'm one of the priests at St. Francis Episcopal Parish and Community Center.
And I'm Mary Sulerud. I'm the Canon for Congregational Vitality for the Episcopal Diocese of Maryland, and I am so glad to be with you.
Perhaps this is the first time that you've seen one of our daily reflection videos, and if so, we'd like to welcome you to this community that we're creating through virtual spaces. But if you've been watching along through the entirety of the pandemic, you've seen that we've been trying to come up with all sorts of ways to stay connected, to continue to grow, and to be filled with Christ's resurrection, light, and love during this challenging time. Today we're focusing, Mary and I, on a model that you've heard us talk a little bit about in some of the reflections that have already preceded this. We are being trained through the College for Congregational Development. And so we're going to be talking some about a particular model called the life cycle of congregations. So over this video and the weeks and months to come, you're going to be hearing more and more about that.
Whenever I think about the life cycle of anything, I like to start with Scripture, and perhaps this well-known piece of Scripture will resonate with you about life cycles. It's from Ecclesiastes. For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to throw away stones, and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek, and a time to lose, a time to keep, and a time to throw away, a time to tear, and a time to sow, a time to keep silence, and a time to speak, a time to love, and a time to hate, a time for war, and a time for peace. Those well-known and very profound words are in their own way a description of life cycles, of seasons of our lives. Everything has a season. Even tropical climes have a season that move from dry to rainy and rainy to dry. And in our lives, we are at the beginning of the church year, the church season, which almost always happens in the fall of the year, while the rest of the world is enjoying the glorious beauty of fall, but also knowing while they enjoy that beauty that things are dying away, going dormant, and maybe dying altogether. We are rising to the occasion to give of ourselves. This is the season for pouring our energy into being formed, into teaching and learning, into caring for others, in giving ourselves away so that others might live. That is the life cycle of all of us. Everything has a life cycle that is created. Even the rocks, I like to say to my grandson, the rocks have a life cycle too. They may wind up in your toy truck as the steel that made it. And once upon a time, those rocks were iron ore. He loves these stories. He doesn't understand a word of them, but he loves these stories. So our time together, Kristofer and I, will be about explaining and living into and inviting you to embrace the life cycle of a congregation.
Mary, thank you for sharing that powerful scriptural reflection, but also just grounding us in this model and in the cycles of the seasons as we go through change. You mentioned the time that we have together, and there are two upcoming things that are occurring. One is just for the vestry, who gather once a month on Sundays at noon, and so we'll be gathering on September 26th at noon, and I'll be doing a brief teaching on this life cycle model. And then Mary and I are going to be co-teaching together just a couple days after that, and that is open to anybody that wants to participate. That's going to be on Tuesday, September 28th. Here at St. Francis down in the big room. So we'll have all the COVID safety precautions in place. And we hope that you'll consider coming out to learn not only about this model, but about what God is doing in and through St. Francis at this time, in this new creation that we're becoming. So speaking of that new creation, you may notice if you've been here to St. Francis before, this is the worship entryway here. It's a vestibule with two sets of glass doors, and we've got those doors wide open right now. And on one side, you see a stained glass image. This is an image of the Holy Family, Jesus, newly born, and Mary and Joseph. This is one of 17 images that were a part of the beautiful stained glass array that used to hang at St. Thomas on Providence Road. Within the next couple of weeks, this vestibule will actually have not only the nativity scene, but it's going to have a scene from Jesus' life on this side, a scene from Jesus' death on this side, and a scene from Jesus' resurrection on this. So as you come and go through the worship entryway, we pass through this portal, entering the life cycle of our humanity and Christ's humanity and divinity, Christ's presence with us. So in the birth, life, death, and resurrection of Jesus, as we're transformed by that, God is clearly doing a new thing in our midst. So we have a lot that we can examine as we pour ourselves into the ministry that we're called to here, into scriptures like that in Ecclesiastes, in the things that adorn our worship spaces, but in the ways that we engage in these virtual spaces as well. So we're so grateful that you spent time to listen today. Mary, I'm so glad to have you a part of this journey with us at St. Francis, and we hope that you'll come out to participate in not only this upcoming training that's available to all folks that want to be here at St. Francis, but we're going to have more offerings through the College for Congregational Development coming up in the weeks and months and years ahead. So thanks for listening, and God's peace be with you.